Welcome back, Patriots, to Red, Rights, and You, the show where we separate the facts from the fiction and laugh at the circus the left calls politics. Now, this week, the spotlight was on Robert Kennedy Jr., as dim-witted Democrats who seem to have Big Pharma's hand firmly planted in their back pockets had tried to rake him over the coals for daring to speak his mind on vaccines and other inconvenient truths. Now, the best part? Watching them trip over their own manufactured stories and outright lies while trying to score a gotcha moment. Now, spoiler alert, they didn't. Meanwhile, in the land of tolerance and unity, Tim Walz and his pals decided it was a good time to openly fantasize about the death of our sitting president. Classy, Tim. Real classy. To think this guy wanted to be the vice president of our country. Pretty sad. These are the same people who say we're a danger to democracy. And on the home front, the Department of Defense has been officially rebranded. Forget defense. They're calling it what it really is, the Department of War. And judges, you know, those robed referees who pretend to call it right down the middle. Yeah, they're now trying to block Trump from collecting trillions in tariffs. Trillions that don't just fill our coffers, but also bring jobs and economic leverage right back here to American soil. Apparently, winning for America is just way too much for them to handle. But hold on, folks, because the offensive just got real. We're taking the war on drugs to the sources. Venezuela and any other cartel-run corner of the world pumping poison into our streets is now under scrutiny and under attack when necessary. Finally, a strategy that doesn't involve holding hands and singing Kumbaya at the border. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, folks. Grab your mustard, grab your buns, because it's time for a man who brings more flavor to this show than Nathan's brings to Coney Island on the 4th of July. He is the mustard on the hot dog. He is the bulldog of banter. He is the titan of truth, the sledgehammer to socialist nonsense. Give it up for my co-host, the one and the only Mark Musgrove. Mark?
How's it going?
Hey, buddy, what's the word on the war against wokeism, my friend?
Well, the word is, first of all, I'm a ketchup person, not a hot dog personally. So you and I, we don't have anything in common. So
you are a communist then. I have my suspicions.
Yeah. So since you're a mustard person and I'm a ketchup person, that makes me better than you.
Yeah.
Because
probably.
My group, the ketchup group, we have the moral superiority.
But just remember,
mustard
Mark,
group, you're a bunch of fascist Nazis.
But I am always trying to catch up. Does that matter?
Your jokes don't pass any muster. I'm sorry.
You say tomato, I say tomato, right?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of all this with Kennedy? You would never know it, but I am really upset by all this nonsense because, look, these Dem politicians and Republicans, some of them too, are indebted to Big Pharma. And we're all starting to find out how people that come into a job that pays $170,000 a year are winding up $10 million, $20 million, 30, 40, some more than that, multi-millionaires. And we're finding out that all politicians are bought and paid for. Methinks thou dost protest too much. That's what they're doing. They're after him because they're afraid he's going to expose these big pharma companies for what they have done, and that is to produce dangerous vaccines that are either untested or they don't want to test them, that are affecting our children, and they're getting this autism. I go from personal experience, and we could talk about that on another podcast, but long story short, my son went for the MMR when he was very young, I think 18 months, 16 months, whatever it was. Just hours later, he was a blank slate. Done. This is happening more than we know. Medical professionals are all bought and paid for. Who do you think sponsors and pays for a lot of these hospital wings and research? Big pharma companies. They're rich as can be, trillions of dollars. But when they needed a favor, there was a class action lawsuit. We were involved in it when my son was young. And before you know it, somebody made a few phone calls, and all of a sudden it just went away. It's crooked. It's screwed up. Everybody's starting to learn. Even Bernie Sanders, when he was on the hearings with Kennedy, said, oh, we all take money from these places. At least he did admit it. Elizabeth Warren, she's up there just defending, because they know he's going to come up with the solution. And unless he's not honest with himself and he just backs away, and they're hoping he will because they're just hammering him repeatedly. But if he sticks up for what's right and what's accurate, his findings are going to show that the vaccinations, as they always have known and always have been, are responsible for this increase in autism in our children. And they're ruining lives, Mark. They ruined my son's life, and how many other lives? They can throw out millions of dollars for lawsuits. They do it all the time. It's like me handing you a buck and saying, hey, good bet, Mark. But when it comes to 1 out of every 16 boys and 1 out of whatever 32 children altogether having to pay lawsuits to each one of those families, now it's time for them to pick up the phone and say, hey, remember the campaign fund that I contributed, and remember all the money I've been giving you? Need a little favor here. That lawsuit, by the way, was initiated by a senator whose grandson, I believe, had autism. That's how it came about. I have talked over the years with medical professionals whose children have had autism. You want an unbiased account of what causes autism? Talk to one of them. One gentleman actually gave up his field of study and started working on the effects of vaccines on autism. He told me that it wasn't the vaccine itself, it was the preservatives that they used in the vaccine, which is kind of crazy. It's a mercury derivative, and it mimics mercury poisoning in a lot of cases. He told me the pharmaceutical companies knew about it, but instead of taking everything off the shelves and replacing it with an alternative preservative, they were going to use that vaccine up first. I am so pissed at the government and the people's perception of the government. They pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. They still think, oh, the government cares about us and loss of human life, and that's why they want us to mask up, and that's why they want us to get vaccines. They let somebody like a Fauci, who knew about that whole thing, I don't care what anybody says, it was a complete experiment on control psychologically and physically to reduce population. Then you have the old guy, some trans DEI hire who doesn't know shit from Shinola in there, and that guy's okay. Fauci's okay. But Kennedy, because he wants to get to the bottom of all this unhealthy food. By the way, how much do you think they contribute to these senators' little slush fund? Big Foods, General Mills, and all these places, Pharma, Kraft. All these big companies now, he's starting to step on toes, and they don't like it because that's their meal ticket, and their meal ticket is about to come to an end because he's got people working on this, and as long as he doesn't back down, which I hope he doesn't, and Trump already knows it, Kennedy's already told him, they knew before they even went in there that the vaccines were the problem, and they're going to find that out, or somebody's gotten to them, because they've known it for years and years and years. They never wanted it to be exposed on the Democrat side, and Republicans have taken money too. They're not just getting rich by accident either. Nobody is beyond reproach when it comes to government. Nobody. As right-leaning as this podcast and others may be, we know there's very, very few straight-laced politicians. They aren't giving up their law firms and big money in the civilian world to get into politics because they just want to be public servants. Unless you're somebody like Donald Trump. I mean, he's given up a lot, but it's few and far between. Some do, but if you got a multi-million-dollar company or if you're a physician, you're not going to give it up to get a $170,000 a year job. You know there's a payday down the road. They all know what they're getting into. We've had people on here before that have an inside behind the curtain look at politics, and they know that's what happens too. So as somebody that was affected by autism, and my son is sitting in the next room right now, 31 years old, still has never uttered a word. He's nonverbal. I take that back. Right before he went blank, he was starting to say a word or two. That was before he was 18 months old. He's now 31 years old and can't speak a word. Mm-hmm. They wreck people's lives, and they don't care about the ramifications. They don't give a shit. The government cares about their agenda, how it affects them. They're self-serving. They could give a shit less about the population and how things affect the population. As long as it serves their agenda, they're willing to sacrifice as many people as they need to.
I empathize. As far as this conversation goes, it could go one of two ways. We could either talk about Robert Kennedy and the hearing and how people acted and what he said, and we could get into that. The problem is, if you get into that, that's kind of like an ink blot test. What is that called? A Rorschach test, whatever it's called, where if you watch that, if you hate Kennedy, you think that he was a bumbling idiot. But if you see what Kennedy's trying to do, then you see the senators up there were grandstanding, and they've done absolutely nothing for our health or anything like that in their tenure. They sat idly by while these things happen. And things do need to be improved when it comes to what we put in our bodies, whether it be drugs, whether it be vaccines, the food we eat, even the chemicals, even the shampoo that you put on your hair. I mean, it's chemicals. Those chemicals go into your skin, they go into your body. We don't know for sure. The human body was designed to work the way it does. As a person of faith, you would say that our Creator created us to be functioning. Since modern man has came up with all of these different things to make things better, we're putting things in our bodies that aren't natural. And there is consequences to that. I mean, here's my little pill bottle thing. I mean, I haven't taken my pills today, so I'm gonna take my pills. I'm gonna take this one right here, right now. Okay, it seems benign. But what was in that pill? It's supposed to be for blood pressure. Well, maybe it does. Maybe it causes Alzheimer's. How do you know? It's all trust. And then what's really frustrating is, even if you decide I'm going to go a Whole Foods, not put anything in my body that's packaged or chemicals or anything like that, they spray chemicals on the produce. They put chemicals on the meat. What are we supposed to do? Short of growing our own, which in this society is very difficult to do, because how many people have the ability to have a garden to adequately grow enough, the space, the time, the money, to grow enough to feed yourself? In our society, how many people can do that? 10% maybe? I don't know. I mean, just look subdivision after subdivision after subdivision. Even if they do a little gardening box in their backyard and put fencing around it so that critters can't get in it, that's a few tomatoes you can eat on your salad or whatever. That's not something to live on. I don't know the answer. I think Whole Foods is the answer, but I don't know about here's the thing about the vaccines. I get, and just Ron DeSantis and Florida, they're coming out with making it where you can't, where they're looking towards it should be the parents' decision whether or not to have vaccines. I get that. On the other hand, there'll be parents that'll say, now wait a minute, my kid's going to school and my kid's in danger because these kids in their classroom aren't vaccinated and they're going to give my kid measles or whatever. So I don't know what the answer is. I really don't.
It's a whole podcast. I would love to have a live cast or an entire episode where we talk to other folks that have been affected by vaccines and the ramifications causing autism. There's a lot of folks out there and they're afraid to say anything. I'll tell people what I just told you and people think I'm some kind of psychotic, that it never happened. I guarantee if it happened to your kid, you would definitely not forget about it. And you would definitely not go, oh, vaccines are harmless. You take somebody in to get a vaccination and you think everything's safe. And all of a sudden there are blanks when they were perfectly normal.
Right.
You're going to sit there and tell me that you're going to go through life and say, oh, yeah, that must have just been a coincidence. No, that's not the way it works. That's a whole episode. But one thing about Kennedy is he's a soft target for them. They used to like him when he was on the Democrat side. They hate him now that he went over to the dark side, over to Trump. But the couple of things. First of all, he is quirky. You're allowed to be quirky. I'm quirky. I don't think being quirky makes me stupid. You be maybe a little quirky. I don't think that makes you stupid either. We all have little quirky ideas, but of course they say he's some kind of a nutcase because of these things. And the second thing is his voice. And by the way, Mark, anytime we talk about Kennedy, I don't know if you know this or not, but you start talking like him. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, I have some throat issues.
Okay, well, there you go.
And if I'm worked up, it tends to get worse, which at that hearing, he was pretty worked up, and I thought the veins on his head were going to burst.
I thought it was just through empathy, and you were just absorbing that pain. No. But that voice interrupts the flow. For an amateur podcaster like me, that's fairly normal. But for somebody that's in government, they start hesitating because they're struggling to get out what they need to get out. Yeah. It makes them look unsure, incompetent, and man, they jump all over that shit. That's because they're a bunch of venomous freaking slime ball snakes. And that's what they do. And they don't give them a chance to answer a yes or no question. Mark, could you tell me the meaning of life? And then you say, well, I said yes or no, Mark. Yes or no. They ask questions that beg for explanations, but they want a yes or no answer. They are such complete, and I'm sorry, I'm still worked up, but they are such complete pieces of shit, only because they're trying to protect their own asses.
What Robert Kennedy Jr. should have did is he should have came with some needles and some medications, and he ought to came out, and he ought to sat there, and he ought to said, okay, senators, I have these medications here. These are all approved. Will you take them now? I have this shot for this and this shot for that. Since all these things are safe, here we go. Raise your hand. Who's ready for this shot? What are they going to say? Are they going to say, here, stick me? Or are they going to be like, well, wait a minute. What is it? What's in it? That's just a reasonable thing to ask. And that's what Kennedy is doing. He's making people talk and think about these things, but everybody gets tripped up on some of his philosophies are not mainstream, just to try to say it politically correct. And how do you sort out Kennedy, the person, versus Kennedy, the intention, and we want to get people to be healthier? How do we do this? Yeah. I don't know. As a Cleveland Browns fan, we have Joe Flacco, 40 years old. He's going to be starting quarterback this weekend. When this podcast lands, we'll know whether or not he did a good job or not. And I just read an article about him. When he turned 25, he went hardcore on Whole Foods, all these things to make his body better. And now he's still playing football at age 40. If he hadn't done that, he'd probably be long retired. So Kennedy's focus and emphasis is make America healthy again. The vaccines is a big part of it, and that's a very sensitive part of it for you, because it's you have a situation that you can say, yes, I can see where putting something in your body causes something, but did that help me? Or did that hurt me 10 years from now?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Yeah. He's trying to get to the bottom of it. And people criticize him for not having a lot of doctors and not being a doctor or physician himself. To me, that's a good thing, because he can look at things objectively, and he's not one of these physicians or scientists that are benefiting from the payoffs from Big Pharma. Big Pharma has to be scared to death right now, because when he comes back and they're finally held accountable, and President Trump is well aware, all you have to do is look at it. And they were eight vaccinations for kids all through high school back in the day. And now there's 64 or 100.
Is there?
Yeah, it's some ridiculous amount. So put 2 and 2 together and look at that. And people that were affected by the COVID vaccine, how can you study it in such a short period of time and then make people get the vaccine? Trump was involved in Operation Warp Speed and getting an option out there for people. You got to give him credit for that, but he never, ever forced people to take the vaccine. Biden, they were this close to actually arresting and punishing people criminally for it. First, they started out trying to incentivize them, and then they tried with campaigns, and then they wanted to give them rewards and enter them in lotteries and all that bullshit. But if all that would have failed, who cares about herd immunity or any of that kind of thing? You better get that vaccine, or you can't go out to eat. It reminds me of Mark of the Beast. Unless you have that, you can't go out to eat. You can't travel. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't do anything. And they were this close from doing that. And then they talk about deaths number. Who knows how many deaths? It was so exaggerated, the CDC, and all the numbers were so skewed and ridiculous. I'll bet if you really sat down and tallied the numbers, like they used to say, this many people died today in Ohio. Now this many people died. And I'm sitting there looking at it after about a month. I'm going, shit, how do we have any people left? I mean, there's millions and millions and millions. It doesn't take an expert or a private investigator to be able to sniff out that bullshit. They were just trying to scare people into doing it. They were trying anything they could to force people to mask up, safe distance, all that bullshit, get the vaccine, all that kind of stuff. It was a pandemic. It was not good, but we've been through things like that before. And herd immunity has a way of taking care of itself. In fact, some of the countries that relied on herd immunity fared better than we did. It was just government control. And they found out that people will listen to anything that they say. And now, if you watch the news every day, the bullshit that they're feeding their constituents, their voters, and they're just buying into it hook, line, and sinker. President Trump is this and President Trump is that. All they're doing is repeating propaganda and lies and bullshit that they're being fed every day by mainstream media. Sooner or later, that's all going to come to an end. It doesn't take everybody to stop believing it. It just takes a majority, like we learned the last election. And if they keep doing the stupid woke, liberal, transgender bullshit that they're doing right now, more and more people are going to start leaning towards the right because it's ridiculous. So it's only getting worse.
I need to get back to basics on what we eat and the things that we do for our bodies and what we're teaching in school. We need to be teaching core skills that you need, math. And they used to have a class for penmanship. Who writes anymore? I'm told they don't teach cursive anymore. Mm-mm. So if you need to write somebody something fast, are you using every letter? I don't know. I'm challenging someone out there to mention I'm so and so years old and I didn't learn cursive in school. I'm kind of curious when that happened. But my point is, whether it's about the medical and the vaccines, everything like that, I guess that's why we're conservatives, because there were principles in our society and how we function that have worked for thousands of years. And now we're pumping ourselves full of chemicals. We're eating things we shouldn't be eating. We're eating things out of boxes. We're having vaccines that we don't know for sure if they work or not, or if they do work. Maybe they're good for 100 people, but then it's bad for one person. So then what's the risk analysis there of, okay, 100 people are going to have a good outcome, but one person's going to have a bad outcome. So do you do it because 99 get a benefit, but the one has a bad outcome or dies? Maybe in the case of your son, someone could say, well, 99 people were, saved from something, but then the one had a problem. I mean, who makes those decisions? I mean, how do you value one life over 1,000? I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan. Mr. Spock, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I get that. But then what's funny is, as a Star Trek fan, in that movie, when it was the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, the very next movie, they flipped it and it was the needs of the one outweighed the needs of the many. Even Trump said, we don't want to say all vaccines are bad. We're not saying that. Nobody's saying that, right? Nobody's saying they're all bad. If you're a government person, you'd be like, well, the government approved these, so they're good. But again, I'm going to do it again. This one's been approved. Did that help me or did that hurt me? Again, how do you know? When you put anything in your body, how do you know? Everything is political. When it comes to abortion, personal choice, nobody should have anything to say over a person's body, what have you. But when it came to the COVID vaccines, it's no, you must do this. Or the vaccinations for your kids that go to school. No, you must do this. So do you really have control over your body in this society? Not really.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on what the government decides whether or not you have your right over your body or not, which ironically tied into something with Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia, where someone came up there and said that they believed that their rights came from their creator. And he's like, that's a terrible thing. That's like what the Iranians think. And never minding the fact that the most famous Virginian of all was Thomas Jefferson. And the very first words in the Declaration of Independence was, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, which among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Apparently, Senator Tim Kaine doesn't remember that because he mocked the person this week who said that. But that's what our country was founded on. That's what the Declaration of Independence says.
It's ridiculous.
Let me finish my point on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
What he is saying is your rights don't come from the natural laws, or if you're a person of faith, your rights come from the government, is basically what Tim Kaine was saying. Your rights come because we have laws that our government allows you to have these rights. So that's a really sticky thing, because you have a right to decide what goes in your body. If you're going to have a right to decide whether to carry a child or not, then the same right should apply to what you put in your body. But again, the other side of it is you're not vaccinated, but everybody else could get something because you're a carrier. So again, needs of the few or the needs of the one. I don't know. What do you think about all that? It's confusing. Well, I don't know how to answer any of that.
One thing about the left is they're self-serving hypocrites. Whatever they say is critical. They can't carry on a decent conversation. We're lucky that these news programs like Fox and many of these others pay such good money, or we might actually get some Democrats running for offices again, like Harold Ford Jr. that actually try to make points and have legitimate political arguments. He's even criticizing, saying, instead of the trans and all these crazy issues, why don't we talk about things that can make this country better? Why don't we talk about alternatives? And the minute the Democrats start talking about alternatives and replace the hatred with actual options and things they feel they can do to make this country better, they can get back in this game. But until then, they are digging their graves deeper and deeper and deeper. And the longer that bullshit goes on, the longer it's going to take them to get out of those holes and become legitimate again. It's not getting any better. And when these people start supporting socialists and riots and crime, now Trump wants to go to these other cities and help with the crime situation, and he's proven it in Washington, D.C. In my opinion, he should go to New Orleans where they have Republican leadership and do it down there too. And then once he gets a few, it'll put more pressure. But these guys look like buffoons. Pritzker and that idiot mayor of Chicago and Wu in Boston, and they look like complete idiots supporting illegal aliens and crime. And the guy's trying to do the right thing, just like California. They loved it when he came out for the fires and helped them, but as soon as he left, it was the same old Trump bashing bullshit. And they're doing things like couldn't even direct water, so they had water to put out fire. That's common sense stuff. My opinion, as long as things aren't rigged and they're doing whatever they can do now to make elections legitimate, you're going to see a lot of change. You're going to see governors that were in blue states that are going to be Republican. You're going to see senators that were traditionally in blue states flip to Republican. I'm telling you right now, unless they have some folks that are running that we have never heard of, I believe there's going to be a Republican governor in California. And who knows what's going to happen. But those people out there are sick and tired of all the crap. They're hearing more and more about this ridiculous behavior, and they just can't do it. We've said it until we've turned blue, Mark. Let's have political conversations that make sense. Like these tariffs, bringing in trillions of dollars, new businesses coming here. Now, judges are going up saying, oh, those tariffs are... Whose side are you assholes on? Come on, man. What are you trying to chase business? It's just because it's Trump. If a Democrat was doing that and bringing in that kind of money, they would be the biggest thing since sliced bread. Clearly, successful tactics that are working. They worked during his first term, and they're working even better now. And they're actually giving the U.S. leverage as well, not just with the tariffs, but with people coming in, and we're getting respect from other countries. You can see it. It's right there in front of you. And these idiot judges, please, 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 my biggest wish is that the Supreme Court gets their shit together and says, look, they should have resolved this when they did it the first time about federal judges. Federal judges have zero authority to impose injunctions on presidential decisions. That is not up to them at all. They're overstepping. They want to play the part of a president, and they're appointed federal judges. That is a crock of shit. And until they get rid of it, they're always going to find angles. Okay, we can do it this way. Oh, we can do it this way. Hey, here's a hint. They don't want you to do it at all. Okay? They figured you wouldn't go through the trouble, but you don't care about that. You'll do whatever you have to do to stick a needle in the Trump voodoo doll to try and stop him from doing things, no matter how beneficial it is for the country. They're not pro-America. They're pro-liberal, pro-Democrat, pro-choice, pro-transgenderism, pro-socialism. That's what they stand for.
They're also anti-Christian. A lot of them,
right.
Even ones like Tim Kaine, who espouses to be a Catholic. How can you be up there and when someone says that they believe that their rights come from God, and he's like, that's very disturbing. That's like the Iranian, so he's comparing Thomas Jefferson to Ayatollah Khomeini. Really? You have a law degree? Even if you don't believe in God, that's fine. And Thomas Jefferson's religious beliefs were sometimes a little different than the other people of the time. A lot of those people back in those days were deists, and they believed a little different than modern day Christianity because beliefs have changed over the years. They were more the belief that the Almighty created everything and all the rules were in place, and then he stepped back and then it just kind of happens. That was a sentiment in the 1700s with a lot of the philosophers of the day, that there wasn't an active God in people's lives. And, you can look it up. In the 1700s, there was a lot of movement towards deism, which isn't necessarily Christianity. I mean, it's close. But Thomas Jefferson was all for religious freedom. And by saying you're endowed by your creator, it didn't say God. Your creator could be the universe. Your creator could be the ground of the earth, whatever your creator is. In other words, the point is our rights come from a natural, not from man and not from government. I mean, read the Declaration of Independence, Tim Kaine.
Right. They want to make their own rules with our country. At least they're consistent because they want to make their own rules when it comes to religion too. In the Bible, and Mark, you're more versed in the Bible than I am. A man should not lay with another man, or a woman should not be with another woman. They're like, oh, it doesn't matter if you're transgender or if you're with another woman. God loves everybody. And the bottom line is God does love everybody, but he does not approve of immoral behavior. And if you keep doing those things over and over, then it's not good. It's not like, oh, hey, whatever. And there's no such thing as hell. Everybody's going to go to heaven. It doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what you are. These people come in here, they didn't do anything wrong. They haven't committed major crimes.
They did do something wrong.
To be here.
They did do something wrong. They broke the law to come here. The very first thing they did when they stepped into this on the soil of the United States is break a law.
They act like we changed. They act like we changed the law.
No, it's the law.
Illegal immigration without the proper documentation has never been okay. It's never been all right. It's always been against the law. In fact, back in the days when our ancestors came into this country from Ireland and England, they were stringent at Ellis Island and where these people immigrated into. It was a privilege to be in this country, and you were damn lucky to be here, and you were vetted extremely hard before you were allowed to come into this country. People gave up mass fortunes to come in here and have a new start. These people that are coming in now, they want to be here, but they don't want to do the work that's necessary that proves that they're dedicated and really want to commit to becoming an American citizen. And that's not fair to all those hardworking people that have done that, have come here, gone through all the classes and learned all the history, because they're proving that they want to be an American citizen and that it is a privilege to be here. And they will do whatever it takes to become a citizen here, not getting everything on a silver platter while people that have been here their whole lives are abused. And, there's veterans that need help that are homeless and hurting psychologically. There's kids that need physical, they need help mentally, physically, psychologically. American citizens are being denied their rights as Americans, so these illegals can come in here and get phone cards and 5-star hotels and driver's licenses when they can't even drive and all this crazy shit. What in the world happened to this country? How did it go to hell in a handbasket like that? We can keep talking until we're blue in the face. I know some people say, you say the same thing over and over again. Well, the bullshit keeps on happening. And it's wrong. And we need to make a stand and get rid of this shit. And every time President Trump tries to do it, they try to throw up a blockade. If this was happening to Democrats, they'd be laughing about it. Oh, it's an injunction. We'll do whatever the hell we want. They never cared. It could care less about the letter of the law. Again, self-serving, selfish agendas that we want what we want, and we will do whatever it takes in order to get it.
to stay in power.
That's it. We could talk about it all day. We're running up on some time here. I know we wanted to talk about some other things, Department of War. Some of these things just explain themselves, but it is good that we're seeing pride in the United States again and what we should stand for and what we are. We're getting respect from other countries, even though the Democrats say just the opposite. They're made up lies, accusations, whatever they can say to try and make Trump look bad. But all they're doing is stabbing their own country in the back. It's sick.
Yeah, I have a problem with people who root for Trump to fail
or to die.
He's our president. When Joe Biden was the president, you could crack jokes about he's going to sleep at 2 p.m. and he's not around and things like that. But we weren't mean-spirited that we wished he died or, that he, The entire Democrat message is Trump is bad. We've said this so many times. Even House Minority Leader Jeffries is supposedly putting together a platform for the Democrats for the midterms. And I just saw this morning, so far in the platform that they're working on, they're not saying a single thing about immigration and safety and security. Nothing. Their agenda is going to be about health care and housing. Okay, fine. But most people are worried about security and those sort of things. And for them to just totally like about those things is irresponsible. They could come and meet Trump even 30% of the way and then say, okay, this is our line. But I guess what it is they can't give Trump any credit for anything. But it really doesn't make any sense because in 3 years, Trump is not going to be president anymore, soon to be 3 years. And it's going to be the next person. And I don't know, being so hard on Trump, how that really helps the Democrats. Is that bringing any new people to the Democrat tent? Because all it seems to be when Trump is bad is it's feeding that core vocal group of far left Democrats. That's all it is. And is that going to win them a general election?
No, and it's all about Trump. They think if they got rid of Trump, they get rid of the problem. But then they talk about J.D. Vance because he's in the Trump camp. And when Trump is gone, they're going to start working on him. And then he's going to be the Antichrist, and he's going to be Hitler. If it was Rubio, he's the Antichrist. He's Hitler. He said he was going to do this, and he's going to do that. It's all politics as usual. My thing is, let's just talk it out. What's your stance and why? Why do you think the tariffs are bad? And what has happened that has proved that they're bad? If you can show me examples, I'll listen. If they're legitimate, well, they're bad because Trump is bad. This is wrong because Trump is an asshole. This is horrible because Trump is a dictator. And you know what? Tell me what your alternative is. What are you going to do to make things better? But they can't come up with anything. All they can say is, this isn't working. These tariffs are killing us. When did they kill us in the first term? How are they killing us now? If prices go up here and there, okay, I understand. But you got to take a little bit of the bad with the good. If they're going to bring in trillions of dollars, jobs, and everything else, even if the inflation does go up a little bit, you got to look at risk versus reward. And that's what he's doing. Other countries have benefited from tariffs for years, and we got away from it. We became the country that everybody stepped on and said, oh, big bad United States, they don't need the money. We need the money more than them, so they can pay us tariffs. Just tell them, hey, we'll trade with you, but we're not going to pay tariffs. That's bullshit.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
That's the problem about the mainstream media's analysis of the tariff thing is they only see, okay, these tariffs are raising prices on certain things. However, with the tariffs come deals for our companies in our country who can sell now to these countries overseas, and that will make American companies stronger. That means more employment. That means better wages. If the Acme Bolt Company here in the United States can now sell their bolts to India for cheaper, and they sell more bolts, then the people that work at that company can make more money. That company can invest in itself and either build facilities to grow or have more employees. The whole premise is make it easier for the United States to succeed. It's not some Machiavellian power grab that these Democrats have. In fact, they're so obsessed with it. Usually they say what you're obsessed with is usually what you're thinking yourself. You know damn well the Democrat hierarchy, if they can power grab and get more control, if you had a Democrat president in there and he was trying to get more authority over situations, the Democrats would be, yeah, go for it. But it's Trump.
That's why they want to pack the courts. Any little advantage, any little thing that they can do. And this is just throwing a wrench in the works. That's the bottom line with these guys. Hey, I'd love to talk all day, but I've got to get on a call. I have a appointment with Organ Harvesting Is Us because I want immortality. So
yeah.
Putin and G, I definitely want to jump on that train. It doesn't really matter where they're harvesting the organs from. I want to make sure I make my reservations now.
Well, for people that don't know that reference, which I do, supposedly when Xi and Putin and the India guy all met, supposedly there was a hot mic moment where Putin and Xi were talking about transplanting their organs in order that you could perpetually, have immortality or to live a long life. That's their thinking. Now, someone thinks that who, number one, doesn't believe in God. But number two, they can transplant their organs all they want, but they'll never transplant their soul. Can't speak for what their soul is, but
yeah.
Putin's soul, I don't know. Would we want to even go there and look in it? And
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what a hot mic will pick up during a conversation.
Yeah.
Normally it'd be, hey, that girl's hot. Hey, that girl in the front row is good looking. Or do you know any good restaurants or where I can get a good stiff drink around here? It's like, hey, if you heard about organ harvesting, I mean, I really think I want to harvest organs and live. Hey, you can
forever.
be immortal. We can be immortal. Who has that kind of conversation off the cuff as you're walking away? There's nothing else that you can talk about rather than it's like too evil.
Yeah.
I know a place where we can harvest organs and live forever. What a hot mic moment that is. We're going to roll. Go get some merch. Until next time, stay the course, stay strong, and stay patriotic. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Mark, thank you again. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.